The soil of Lener 7 was the color of rust, and Lieutenant Elias Tanner was sick of it. 6 months on this mining moon, and all he'd seen was endless stretches of copper-tinted landscapes, interrupted only by the occasional firefight, with rebel factions opposing the United Earth Alliance's presence. Scans show movement in Sector 8. Lieutenant, Specialist Dawson's voice crackled through his helmet comm. Possible civilians caught in the crossfire. Elias gripped his pulse rifle tighter. Copy that. I'm heading there now. The skirmish had been brief but intense. Some local resistance fighters had ambushed a mining convoy, and Elias's squad had been deployed to neutralize the threat. But civilian casualties were unacceptable, and he'd broken away from his unit to investigate Dawson's report. The ground rumbled as distant explosions continued. Through swirling dust, Elias spotted what remained of a collapsed building, likely a storage facility for the mining operation. Something caught his eye, a flash of movement beneath a fallen support beam. "Hello," he called out, scanning for hostiles before approaching. "Is anyone there?" A soft, melodic sound responded, not quite a word, but clearly a voice. Elias moved faster, clambering over to breathe until he spotted her. She was Zilari. That much he knew from briefings about the neighboring systems. Humanoid in appearance, but with skin that shimmered with a subtle iridescence like mother-of-pearl. Her eyes were the most striking feature, large, almond-shaped, and a deep violet color that seemed to hold galaxies within them. And she was trapped, pinned beneath a fallen beam, dark blue blood seeping from a wound on her leg. "It's okay," Elias said softly, holstering his weapon and raising his hands. "I'm not going to hurt you." The Zilari girl watched him warily, saying something in her native tongue. Though he couldn't understand the words, the fear in her voice was universal. "I'm going to help you," he said, tapping his chest. "Elias. My name is Elias." She hesitated, then placed a trembling hand over her heart. "Kalina," she whispered. Elias activated his exo-assist and braced himself against the beam. With a mechanical whir, his suit amplified his strength, allowing him to lift the heavy object just enough for her to pull herself free. Once released, she tried to stand but collapsed with a cry of pain. Without hesitation, Elias scooped her up. "I've got you," he murmured. Their eyes met, and something passed between them. Something beyond language or species. Trust, perhaps, or something deeper. The ground shook again, more violently this time. His comm unit buzzed urgently. "Lieutenant, hostiles approaching your position. Get out now." Kalina clutched his armor as he sprinted for cover, her slight form cradled against his chest. He found shelter in the hollowed-out remains of a transport vehicle. "You're safe now," he told her, though he knew she couldn't understand. He applied a universal med gel to her wound, watching as the bleeding slowed. She reached up, touching his face with slender fingers that left a cool sensation against his skin. "Elias," she said again, this time pronouncing it carefully. Before he could respond, distant lights pierced the dusty air. Sleek, silver craft unlike anything in Earth's arsenal. Zilari ships. Kalina's eyes widened. She spoke rapidly, pointing to the approaching vessels, then to herself. "They're coming for you?" Elias asked. She nodded, understanding crossing the language barrier. When the ships landed, figures in ornate armor emerged. Elias stood cautiously, still holding Kalina. Something about their formation, their weapons, suggested these weren't ordinary citizens. Kalina spoke to them. One stepped forward, bowing deeply before taking her from Elias's arms. She reached back, grasping his hand briefly, their fingers intertwining for just a moment before she was whisked away. As the ships disappeared into the copper sky, Elias stood alone, the memory of violet eyes already etched into his soul. 7 years had passed since that day on Lener 7. Lieutenant Elias Tanner was now just Elias, Cargo Operations Manager for Docking Bay 17 on Nexus Station, a sprawling trade hub situated at the crossroads of 3 major space lanes. The station was a melting pot of species from across the galaxy, but Elias rarely saw Zilari among them. Their empire had become increasingly isolated in recent years. Manifest for the Orion's bounty checks out, Elias told his assistant, Jory, a four-armed Helosian with remarkable efficiency. Schedule them for departure at 600 tomorrow. Already done, boss, Jory replied. By the way, something weird is happening in the Commons. Every screen on the station is showing the same broadcast. Elias frowned. Security breach. No, it's coming through official channels. It's the Zilari royal coronation. Elias's heart skipped a beat, a reaction he'd learned to ignore whenever the Zilari were mentioned. Since when do they broadcast their ceremonies? That's just it. They never have before. But this one's being transmitted to every system in the quadrant. Curiosity piqued. Elias followed Jory to the Commons, where hundreds of station residents had gathered before the massive view screens. The scene displayed was breathtaking. A vast crystal palace shimmering beneath twin moons, crowds of iridescent-skinned Zilari filling an enormous plaza. The princess has been in seclusion since the emperor's death 3 months ago, a human reporter was saying. This is the first time she'll address her people as their sovereign. A hush fell over the royal court as a slender figure in flowing silver robes approached the crystal throne. Elias felt a jolt of recognition as the camera zoomed in on her face. Those eyes, violet as deep space, hadn't changed. Kalina, he whispered. As if hearing him across the vastness of space, the princess paused in her procession. She turned to the high priest, spoke briefly, then approached the communication array directly. Before I accept the crown of Zilari, she said, her voice melodic but firm, now translated through the broadcast, I must fulfill a debt of honor. The court murmured in confusion as she continued. 7 years ago, during the Lener conflict, I was secretly visiting our mining interests when I became trapped in a rebel attack. A soldier from Earth saved my life at great risk to his own. He did not know I was the heir to Zilari. He helped me simply because I needed help. Elias's hands began to tremble. His name, Princess Kalina said, is Elias Tanner. The Commons erupted in shocked whispers. Jory stared at Elias, mandibles clicking in astonishment. By royal decree, I dispatch my personal envoy to locate Elias Tanner and bring him to Zilari Prime. To him, I owe my life. To him, our empire owes a debt that must be honored. As she spoke, the security doors to the Commons slid open. 3 tall Zilari in ceremonial armor entered, their eyes scanning the crowd until they found Elias. The lead envoy approached, kneeling before a stunned Elias. Lieutenant Tanner, he said, Princess Kalina awaits. The journey to Zilari Prime aboard the royal vessel Luminous Dawn was surreal. Elias had been given quarters fit for a diplomat, with views of streaming starlight that would make astronomers weep. Yet he felt out of place, a cargo manager suddenly thrust into galactic politics. We approach the homeworld, announced Commander Theron, who had personally come to escort Elias to the observation deck. Zilari Prime emerged from the darkness, a world of shimmering oceans and crystalline continents that seemed to glow from within. Orbiting the planet were massive ring structures, architectural marvels connecting to floating cities. It's beautiful, Elias murmured. The princess will be pleased you think so, Theron replied. Something in his tone made Elias look at him more closely. You don't approve of me being here, do you? Theron's iridescent features remained composed. My approval is irrelevant. The princess commands, and I obey. But there are those who question the wisdom of bringing an outsider to the heart of our empire during such a vulnerable transition of power. Elias nodded. I understand politics, Commander. I was a soldier. Yes, Theron said, his violet eyes assessing. The soldier who saved our princess. Tell me, did you know who she was when you found her? She was just someone who needed help, Elias replied honestly. For the first time, Theron's expression softened. Perhaps that is why she has never forgotten you. The capital city was a marvel of crystal architecture, towers spiraling impossibly high, connected by bridges that seemed made of light itself. Citizens lined the streets as their procession passed, curious about the human in their midst. At the palace, Elias was escorted to private chambers where attendants offered him traditional Zilari garments, flowing robes in deep blue with silver accents. "The princess requests you wear these for the ceremony," explained a female attendant named Vela. "They mark you as an honored guest of the royal house." "What exactly is this ceremony?" Elias asked, examining the intricate fabric. "The ritual of gratitude," Vela replied. "It is unprecedented, normally reserved for Zilari who have saved royal lives in battle." Hours later, Elias stood before massive doors inlaid with what appeared to be constellations rendered in precious gems. Beyond them, he could hear the murmur of a vast assembly. Commander Theron appeared at his side. "Are you prepared?" Elias took a deep breath. "As I'll ever be." The doors swung open, revealing a circular chamber filled with hundreds of Zilari nobility. At the center, standing before the crystal throne, was Kalina, more regal than in the broadcasts, yet somehow still the same frightened girl he'd held in his arms on that distant moon. Their eyes met across the chamber, and for a moment, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. A hush fell over the grand hall as Elias walked toward Princess Kalina. The ceremonial robes felt strange against his skin, but he moved with the discipline of his military days, conscious of every eye upon him. Kalina stood perfectly still, her iridescent skin catching the light from the crystal dome above. As he reached the center of the hall, he instinctively began to kneel, but she raised her hand. "No," she said, her voice carrying through the chamber. "Today, it is I who kneel to you, Elias Tanner of Earth." Gasps echoed through the court as the princess descended the 3 steps from her throne and gracefully knelt before him. She held out her hands, upon which rested a medallion shaped like a starburst, crafted from a material that seemed to contain its own light. "This is the emblem of eternal gratitude," she explained, her violet eyes locked with his. "In all our history, it has been bestowed only 7 times. With it comes the title of Zilari Friend and all the privileges thereof." She rose, placing the medallion around his neck. As it touched his chest, he felt a strange warmth spread through him. "I accept this honor," Elias said, the words coming to him instinctively, "and pledge friendship to Princess Kalina and the people of Zilari." The formality of the ceremony concluded, Kalina addressed the court once more. "Tonight we feast to celebrate this bond between our worlds. For now, I request private audience with our honored guest." The court withdrew, some faces showing approval, others thinly veiled disdain. Theron remained by the main doors, watchful. Alone except for her personal guards, Kalina's regal demeanor softened. "Walk with me," she said, gesturing toward a side passage. They entered a garden unlike any Elias had seen. Plants that responded to their presence with subtle movements and soft bioluminescence. A small stream ran through it, the water singing faintly as it flowed. "You recognize me," she said after a moment of silence. "I never forgot your eyes," Elias admitted. She smiled. "Nor I yours. Though you've changed, there's silver in your hair now." He laughed softly. 7 years on a space station will do that. "You left the military." "After Lener 7, something changed in me. I couldn't see the purpose in it anymore." Kalina nodded. "War rarely has purpose beyond the ambitions of those who declare it." She paused by a pool where crystalline fish swam in lazy circles. "I searched for you, you know, after I became of age. But Earth's military records are surprisingly difficult to access, even for a princess. Why look for me at all?" Elias asked. "I was just a soldier doing his job." "Were you?" She turned to face him fully. "Is that why you broke formation to search for civilians? Why you carried me to safety rather than simply reporting my location?" The weight of her gaze made his heart race. "I couldn't lead you there, and I couldn't forget you." She stepped closer. When my father died, I had to decide what kind of ruler I would be. I remembered what you taught me that day, that compassion transcends boundaries, that honor lies in helping others, not in power or position. Without the court watching, Kalina seemed both more regal and more vulnerable. Her fingers brushed the medallion at his chest, then came to rest against his heartbeat. "There are those who believe I bring you here merely to repay a debt," she said softly. "They do not understand that some connections cannot be explained by duty or politics." Elias found himself taking her hand in his. "And what connection is that, princess?" "Kalina," she corrected. "To you, I am Kalina." The distance between them vanished as she leaned forward, her lips meeting his with tentative curiosity that quickly deepened into something more profound. The garden around them seemed to pulse with light as they embraced, two souls reunited across the vast emptiness of space and time. When they finally parted, Kalina's eyes shimmered with emotion. "I have spent 7 years wondering if what I felt was merely gratitude or something more. Now I know." Elias touched her face gently. "And what do the laws of Zeleri say about a princess and a cargo manager?" Her smile held both mischief and determination. "I am no longer just a princess. As of tomorrow, I am empress, and I will write new laws if necessary." The Grand Imperial Ball marked the final celebration of Kalina's coronation week. The crystal ballroom floated above the capital city, providing panoramic views of the twin moons rising over Zelari Prime. Elias stood on a balcony, momentarily escaping the curious stares and whispered conversations that followed him everywhere. "Hiding from your admirers," came a familiar voice. He turned to find Theron approaching, the commander's usual stern expression replaced with something almost amicable. "Just catching my breath," Elias replied. "I'm not used to being the center of attention. You should become accustomed to it." Theron joined him at the railing. "The Empress has not taken her eyes off you all evening." Elias glanced into the ballroom, where Kalina moved gracefully among her guests, radiant in robes that shifted colors like the surface of a soap bubble. Despite her diplomatic engagement with the Centaurian ambassador, her gaze frequently drifted to the balcony. "Not everyone shares her enthusiasm for my presence," Elias observed. Theron nodded. "Chancellor Vox leads the traditionalist faction. They believe Zelari should remain isolated, pure. They see you as a complication." "And what do you see, Commander?" "I see a man who saved my sovereign when he had no reason to do so." Theron's violet eyes bore into Elias. "But I also see the political realities. An empress cannot simply follow her heart without consequences." Before Elias could respond, a hush fell over the ballroom. Kalina had taken position at the center, with Royal Seer Ixora beside her. "Esteemed guests," Kalina began, her voice carrying effortlessly. "Tradition dictates that a newly crowned sovereign must announce their first royal initiative, the great work that will define the beginning of their reign." The crowd murmured with anticipation. For too long, Zelari has turned inward, isolated from the galaxy around us. We have preserved our culture, yes, but at the cost of growth and understanding. Her eyes found Elias. 7 years ago, a man from Earth showed me that compassion knows no boundaries of species or allegiance. Today, I announce the formation of the Interstellar Diplomatic Corps, a new beginning for Zelari engagement with all peaceful worlds. Chancellor Vox's face darkened, but he maintained composure as Kalina continued. "And to lead this initiative, I have selected someone who embodies the bridge between our worlds." She extended her hand toward the balcony. "Elias Tanner, Ambassador Plenipotentiary of Zelari." Shocked whispers spread through the assembly as Elias made his way to Kalina's side. The title was unexpected, a position of extraordinary influence. "This is more than gratitude," he whispered as he reached her. "It is vision," she replied softly, "and perhaps a touch of selfishness." The seer stepped forward, presenting a ceremonial sash of office. As Kalina draped it across Elias's shoulder, her fingers lingered against his. "Do you accept this charge?" she asked formally. "I do," he replied, aware of the weight of the moment. What followed was traditional Zilari music, guests dancing in intricate patterns across the crystal floor. Eventually, protocol dictated the Empress and her new ambassador opened the final dance. As they moved together, bodies close, Kalena spoke for his ears alone. "Chancellor Vox has 3 days to accept this appointment or formally challenge it. And if he challenges,